Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be going through and matchmaking a lot of the fighters from the UFC 317 card that took place yesterday, headlined by Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliviera. We'll jump straight in with the winner of the main event. We've got Ilia Topuria. I have him matched up with the winner of a Paddy Pimblett versus Arman Tsarukyan #1 contender fight. They need to get this done ASAP just because I want Ilia to fight before the end of the year. And I don't want either of these guys to get it without this #1 contender fight, because if Arman gets it, they're still sort of rewarding him for missing weight. Like, he should have to fight in between pulling out 24 hours before a title fight. And Paddy Pimblett's last win was against Michael Chandler. So anyone who sees this fight being made is just going to make excuses the entire time that Paddy Pimblett does not deserve it after beating a guy who just lost to Charles Oliveira, who Ilia Topuria just smoked. So I think we need more reasoning on who's going to be the #1 contender, especially if we've got such like a incredible 3-fight winning streak for Ilia Topuria in Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, and Alex Volkanovski. We need another name in there to follow up. That's not like not a Paddy Pimblett in a #7 spot. Let me just say it like that. Just because, although I think Paddy Pimblett may be good enough to be in a title fight, I just think that anyone looking back in 10 years or whatever from now, when they look on Wikipedia, they'll see Paddy Pimblett's name and see that he only beat Michael Chandler just before it, and they just won't be as impressed as if, let's say, Arman beats Paddy Pimblett, or if Paddy Pimblett beats Arman, and you look back and that'll be like a really good win. So I think that they need to make this fight between Arman Tsarukyan and Paddy Pimblett very soon. I know that Paddy wants to fight in Abu Dhabi, so I think they'll probably make this for October. And I would hope that they can do it earlier, but I just don't think that they will get it done. I think there should be a solidified contender by December, or like a solidified contender ready to fight by December, just because I don't think Ilia Topuria needs to take 6 months off or 5 months off after winning a first round KO. So it'd be nice to get him to turn around really quickly. And I think Arman probably beats Paddy Pimblett, and I think he'll be the toughest test for Ilia so far, just because he's got a really good wrestling background. He's a smart guy. He's not going to try to stand with him on the feet. He'll constantly shoot against Ilia Topuria. And it should be a really fun, explosive matchup that will look good on Ilia Topuria's resume, no matter who wins out of Arman Tsarukyan and Paddy Pimblett. Moving on to the loser of the main event, everyone's favorite fighter, Paul Charles, getting slimed out by Ilia Topuria. I put him against Mateusz Gamrot. I've done the whole fan base a favor here. And I actually think that this makes quite a bit of sense. If you have got someone like Charles who's got flatlined for the first time ever, I don't think he's stupid. He's not going to jump back in there with a heavy hitter that can flatline him yet again. And Gamrot is not a heavy hitter. He doesn't hit hard at all. I don't know if he's got many knockdowns in the UFC. And I think Gamrot will probably be fighting in France against Benoit Saint-Denis, and I really think he's going to smoke Benoit, maybe getting him by a grappling heavy decision or even submission, I could see. And I just think that this will be a good fight, because Gamrot, although a lot of people don't like Gamrot because he's robbed so many people and he's gotten so many flukes throughout his career, I think he should have been rewarded with a big matchup at some point. Like, I think him getting the Hooker fight was a good sign for him, but he lost that by split decision that he really could have won. So I think that we need to reward him once more in his career, not just keep giving him these like odd names like a Ludovic Klein or a Benoit Saint-Denis. We should give him someone that he can make a name off, like a Charles Oliveira, someone who he's been around in the rankings for the last like 5 years or so, because he's been on in the top 10 for a while, and he's never got one of these high-level matchups. So I think Gamrot deserves it. And he's been taking these matchups like against Ludovic Klein. He took that one, I think it was on like 8 weeks, 6 weeks notice. So not really short notice, but not on ideal circumstances for Gamrot. So I think this is a good fight to make. I think for Charles, coming back after a violent knockout, he needs to come up against a grappler. And the only other one would be Beneil Dariush, but he's not looked amazing. And Charles Oliveira has already slimed him out in Beneil Dariush's in 2023 also. So it's not too long ago. And I would prefer someone like Gamrot, who at that point will be coming off a 2-fight winning streak against Benoit Saint-Denis and against Ludovic Klein. I think he deserves to get a shot up the rankings. And Charles Oliveira would be a great shot for him to take. And I know that some people would want Charles Oliveira to be fighting like a winner of Max Holloway versus Poirier. But I just want this guy to have a chance at like having big fights still in the future. And I think that Gamrot would be a good fight for him. He would probably shoot himself into a guillotine and Charles might be able to get him out of there in the first round. And Gamrot, although he doesn't get finished much, he gets rocked a lot. So I think even in a decision aspect, I think Charles Oliveira would be able to take this. And Gamrot's been... I like Gamrot. He's a fun guy. He's funny in his interviews. And I think he's just been starved of good matchups throughout his career. So let's reward him for once in his lifetime. Moving on, we've got Alexandre Pantoja. There's not really much to talk about with this one. We know this is going to be made against Joshua Van. Joshua Van getting a good win against Brandon Royval in the fight just before the title fight between Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Kara-France. This will be a really good matchup. I think the build-up's going to be fun. I think this should be not too long away. Joshua Van has shown that he loves to be active. And Pantoja is not the most active guy, but he took literally no damage against Kai Kara-France, so I assume that he'll want to get in there before the end of the year. This would be a beautiful co-main event to like the November pay-per-view, or if it's a really weak pay-per-view in December, we can get Pantoja headlining that one again. But I think we should get it done as soon as possible, just because even though Joshua Van's got really good takedown defense, he's not been training for very long at all, especially grappling. He's only been grappling for about 4 years, so I think that this is going to just be a bulldoze round one Pantoja submission. And Joshua Van, although he's got a few knockouts in his career, he's not a one-punch KO power guy. I would even say Kai Kara-France had more of a chance of one-punch KOing Pantoja. So I think that Pantoja is going to be able to run through him in that first round. So we need to make this match soon, just so we can get the flyweight division rolling and moving. And I am pretty excited for this fight, even if Pantoja steamrolled Kai Kara-France. I just think that it's nice to see like a young talent like Joshua Van come up against the grizzled vet of Pantoja. Like, Pantoja's got the 35 curse running against him right now. Joshua Van's got this like 22-year-old aura. Got that John Jones coming up aura. I know he's not as perfect as John, but like being so fantastic at such a young age makes it so this is a really fun fight. Like, we'll look at this as like the young blood versus the new blood. So I think that they should make this fight soon. And if Pantoja wants to become the GOAT of flyweight or the GOAT of the sport, he has to start speed running these flyweights. So let's make this match. Even if they want to make it really soon, if they want to do a 3-month turnaround, I want to see it. So let's get it done soon. Moving on to the loser of the co-main event, Kai Kara-France. Obviously, anyone who's watched any sort of matchmaking videos ever after a Kai Kara-France or Manel Kape fight, this is always a fight that's put together because the UFC has got all the marketing in the world for this. They've seen all of the beef that they've got against each other. We've seen Manel Kape screaming at all of City Kickboxing. So let's get this fight made now. We've just seen Kai Kara-France stock loss after losing to Pantoja. And we've seen Manel Kape stock loss after pulling out yet again. So let's put these two up against each other. I think these are probably two of the most hated fighters in the flyweight division with the most beef against each other. So it's just a chance for one of these guys to become more of either a fan-hated guy or a fan favorite. So this is a perfect fight to put on. It's one of the only like fully hyped fights in the flyweight division. Usually the flyweights never have beef with each other, yet these guys have real beef. So let's capitalize on that. This will be a hype fight. We could put this as a 5-round main event in the Apex or in addition to a pay-per-view that we would all be excited for. Like, if this was the main card opener to, like, the November card or something like that, we are all going to be buying that pay-per-view. And the thing is that if Manel Kape has any chance of winning the belt against Pantoja, he has to absolutely school Kai Kara-France. So it's sort of a good matchup to see where Manel Kape is at and whether he's even got a shot against Pantoja, because I would say that the takedown defense of Kai Kara-France and Manel Kape is pretty identical, and obviously these guys aren't going to shoot against each other, but if Manel Kape can show that he's faster, slicker, and more powerful than Kai Kara-France, and people will jump on the hype train and pretend that he's got a chance of being able to KO Pantoja, because out of all of the guys at flyweight, I think that these two are the only ones with one-shot KO power, so let's put them against each other and hope that Manel Kape can win this one so we can have an entertaining title defense for Pantoja. Moving on, we've got the loser of the feature fight. We've got Brandon Royval. I've put him against Muhammad Mokaev. A lot of people probably don't like that I've made this matchup, but this will actually benefit the UFC in every which way. I've heard that Royval wants to move up to 135. I think he would do terribly up there. His power already isn't scary to these 125ers, let alone to some of these bigger 135ers. Like, imagine a Petr Yan against Brandon Royval. He would just tank the shots and knock Royval down instantly into the fight. Like, I think that would be a round where, that would be a fight where Petr Yan would actually win the first round. I know, shocking, he never does that, but I just think that Brandon Royval at 135 will not be scary to any of them, and he just doesn't have the pop on his shots to actually push anyone back, so he's constantly going to be fighting on the back foot. I think for Royval, it's a bad move to go up because he still holds a lot of stock in flyweight, so he could find himself in title fights in the future once Pantoja retires. So I think he shouldn't be moving up to bantamweight because he might lose all that stock in flyweight. And I just don't see the UFC wanting to bring him back down if Pantoja retires. The thing is that I think he will still want to move up to bantamweight just because while Pantoja's there, there's no fights left for him in the division currently. But this is where we need to sign a Muhammad Mokaev because he's a trash talker. He can get some excitement out of a Brandon Royval fight. He's got a decent name. I know over in that side of the world, he's got a pretty good name, and he's got a pretty big fan base. And he's also a difficult stylistic matchup for Pantoja. So I think we need to get him back in the UFC, back in a number one contender fight, or at least in a fight where if he wins, he can be put in a number one contender fight. But also, just so it can appease the UFC. I know they hate Muhammad Mokaev, but they might just want to build a name off him. And I think Brandon Royval actually has a good style to beat Mokaev, which sort of makes no sense because I said Mokaev has the style to beat Pantoja, but then Pantoja has the style to beat Royval, and then Royval's got the style to beat Muhammad Mokaev. Sorry, I'm probably confusing your brain running in circles, but it makes sense in my head, alright? Don't question it. But Brandon Royval, I think him versus Muhammad Mokaev is a difficult stylistic matchup for Mokaev, someone who scrambles really well, and it would be a nice surprise to see if Mokaev could out-scramble the likes of Brandon Royval. And let's say he is able to beat Royval, it's not the worst looking loss for Royval because Mokaev was already undefeated in the flyweight division when he was actually in the UFC. And he's undefeated in general, and he's got that aura of invincibility at the moment. So if he loses, it's not like he's getting thrown to number 7 in the rankings. Like, he'll still be known as one of the top guys in flyweight. And at that point, if he loses, then he should move up. But at least give yourself one more shot to, like, piggyback the hype off of Muhammad Mokaev and get it back in the good books of the UFC. Moving on to Beneil Dariush, who got the good win over Renato Moicano. I'm going to be slaughtering him and putting him against Rafael Fiziev. I know this matchup seems like I'm just bullying Beneil, but I can't let these guys stick around with easy matchups. It's a sink or swim if you're in the top 10 of any division. Beneil's been fighting grapplers literally for years. The last striker he fought was Tony Ferguson off 2 losses in 2021. So we need to put Beneil against one of these fast, slick strikers because honestly, the last 3 fights, he's looked so slow on the feet. And he got the reward of facing a slower Renato Moicano, who's not the best striker, not the fastest striker. So let's put him against the exact opposite. Someone who's beaten Moicano, Rafael Fiziev. I think Fiziev needs to be rewarded for all the favors he's given the UFC over the last year. He stepped up in 2 weeks against Justin Gaethje and made weight for that fight. Fought a couple of months later just because the UFC were going to Azerbaijan against a smaller name in Ignacio Bahamondes. And Beneil is one fight in the last 2 years in a good stylistic matchup. He fought Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliviera 2 years ago, who granted weren't the easiest stylistic matchups, but they weren't the hardest. So let's give him his most difficult style matchup. Stop rewarding him. He's not going to touch the belt, so we shouldn't give him these easier fights. Let's not give him Charles Oliveira off a loss. I don't want to see that. And the thing is that we've seen Fiziev take out we haven't seen Fiziev take out good grapplers, so it's a good test for both. If Dariush can beat Fiziev, then give him a shot up the rankings. But we need both of these guys to face off against each other to see if Fiziev can deal with a grappler, to see if Dariush can deal with a slick striker. So let's hope they book this fight before the end of the year. We need to see this fight. And it's just good for the health of the lightweight division to make this. Moving on, we've got Renato Moicano, had a difficult loss. I've matched him up against Fares Ziam. It was really hard to find an opponent that would actually match up scheduling-wise with Renato, because all the people below him that are still in the rankings are already matched up. And then the people just outside the rankings have either just lost, like a Ludovic Klein, or they're already matched up. So Fares Ziam was the only one outside the rankings that deserved a shot in the rankings that's not matched up. I know that they would want him to fight in France in September, but he would take a delay in that fight if it meant to fight a ranked opponent. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. He absolutely deserves a ranked opponent. And Moicano's got a good name, and Moicano just got out-grappled, and Fares Ziam is a very good grappler, so we need to see what improvements Moicano can make and whether he is a top 15 ranked guy, because if you look at the top 15, his only ranked win is Benoit Saint Denis. And I honestly, hand on my heart, don't think that Benoit is ranked level. I think Fares Ziam smokes Benoit. I think Joel Alvarez kills Benoit. I'll go one further. I think Nasrat Haqparast smokes Benoit. So I think we need to see Renato Moicano against an unranked fighter who deserves a shot in the rankings, and especially against a guy who grapples. We don't need a quick turnaround in France. Let's do this in, like, maybe the prelim headliner of a December pay-per-view or a prelim headliner of the November pay-per-view. Let's get him in there. I don't think Moicano took much damage, so let's get him on the exercise bike, improving his cardio, and get him in there in a couple of months from now. Moving on, we've got Payton Talbott. I've matched him up with Cody Garbrandt. This is sort of a no-brainer. Both of these guys lost to Raoni Barcelos. And they will want a name to feed Payton Talbott, just because he's got a little bit of a name himself. He's a up-and-coming prospect with a fun style. And at one point, Cody Garbrandt was that up-and-coming prospect with a fun style. So it's nice to get get Payton Talbott. Sorry, I'm burping, but it would be nice to get Payton Talbott onto a fight that's against someone who's actually like a well-known name for the last few years that all of the casual fans will know. So I think that this is like a no-brainer to make this. And it will be interesting to see what game plan he uses against Garbrandt. As we've seen in his last fight against Lima, that he looked much better in the grappling aspect of it. And we saw that Garbrandt has a deficiency in grappling. So it'll be interesting to see whether he thinks he can just chin Garbrandt or if he's going to take him down. And we got to build up Payton right. We got to give him tough fights against people that he has a path to victory against, but also have a bigger name with him, so he's consistently reaching another level of stardom. So this is the perfect fight to make. They will probably make this fight. Chuck it on a prelim headliner. I don't think that Payton's a pay-per-view type fighter yet, but a prelim headliner of the November pay-per-view, December pay-per-view, even October pay-per-view. I know that he's not from Abu Dhabi, but still a good fight for it. Moving on, we have got Felipe Lima. I've put him against Serhi City. Serhi City, if you don't know him, fought against Cameron Smotherman recently and beat him. They're both prospects on the rise. I think they're both around 27, 28. And the thing is that Lima showed against Talbot that he's got the skills but not the fight IQ to be an elite level fighter. So we need to set him up stylistically against some one-dimensional fighters with some really slick, whatever the dimension that they're good at, they need to be really slick. So then we can see what game plans Lima uses to get past these opponents. We need to see that he's improving in the ability of making game plans. So I want to see this fight. I want it to be soon as well. Lima didn't take too much damage. Serhi City's a slick striker. So it would be nice to see what he chooses to go against Serhi City. And it would be nice to see if he can improve his fight IQ. Pardon me. Moving on, we have got Gregory Rodriguez. I've put him against Joe Pyfer. I hope that this fight gets made. This could be like, I don't want to see Ilia Topuria versus Arman Sarukian. I need to see this fight. This is the one I need to see. This seems a little bit retarded just because Pyfer lost to Hermanson last year, and then Gregory just KO'd Hermanson. So it seems like Gregory's like higher up towards the rankings than Pyfer. But I think both of these guys still need this matchup. And I need this matchup before I die. This is a mirror matchup. There's power for days on either side. I think Rodriguez would go in with a grappling-heavy game plan, so it would be interesting to see how Pyfer deals with that. And it'd be interesting to see how Pyfer deals with someone who's got maybe not the same level of power, but are very similar. They both throw punches really similarly. They both throw a lot into their shots. I would both compare their striking to Chuck Liddell, maybe with a bit of a more regard for defense for both of them. But I think having these two guys with a mirror matchup, we need to see who's actually going to make it to the top 15. Both of them have had their shot to get to the top 15, but have both come up unsuccessful. So let's not just shoot them back up into that spot to lose again. Let's give them one more fight to prepare, and then we can give them a ranked opponent. And I think that this is the perfect fight. I'll go as far as saying you can throw this on a pay-per-view. I know that I was complaining about Gastelum versus Pyfer on a pay-per-view, but this is a fight that could be. Gregory Rodriguez always throws down. Pyfer's the same. This would be a good pay-per-view matchup, and I think that they should book it. I could see this being boring, being like the Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis fight, but I just don't think it would be. I think Gregory Rodriguez is smart enough to try and grapple with Joe Pyfer, even though Pyfer's a good grappler in his own right. But I just want to see this fight. I don't want them to be jumped up into the 10 to 15 range of the middleweight division. I think that they should both be fighting each other first. Moving on to the last matchup I've matched up Jose Delgado with Melquizael Costa. I need to see Delgado against one of these professional fraud checkers now. We've seen him fight a marauder. We need the fraud checkers to come in and fight Jose Delgado, see if he's got the real deal. And he needs to fight a guy with really good grappling and a bit more technical than a Haider Emil. I would give someone a little bit closer to the rankings than Melquizael Costa, but I think Melky's working his way up. And the other thing is that I couldn't think of many people who were actually going to be available to fight soon. And Melky Costa has fought twice this year already. He's looking to be active. He's been looking good recently. He took a little bit of damage against Julian Erosa last time out, but I think he'll be looking to get straight back in there. And Jose Delgado took literally no damage. He was in there for 30 seconds and took out Haider Emil. So he should try to get back in there soon. And I quite like it when we get two people who are really active to fight each other, just because we get to see some sort of progression from each fight when they're so active. Because Melky Costa fought literally like a month or two ago. So if we can get these guys in the cage in 2-3 months on like a Apex card in the main event, on the main card of an Apex fight night, then we would all be like, oh, I recognize him from the last Apex fight night. Or I recognize Jose Delgado from finishing Haider Emil, the next generation's marauder. So this oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, this would be a good fight. It would be nice to see how Melky Costa's grappling matches up against Jose Delgado. And I think that this is the fight to make. Let me know what you think of my matchups that I've made in the comment section below. As always, like and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.